If you thought our current follow-up teams were crazy, just wait until you see what is coming next, because it is going to completely blow your mind. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Grab a snack, pull up a chair, and let's talk about the absolute wild ride that is ASHVEIL, the brand new 5-star lightning character stepping onto the roster in version 4.1. Recently, his version 3 beta dropped, and when I tell you the changes are massive, I mean it. The community has been in absolute chaos. So today, we are going to sit down, look at the numbers together, and break down every single change that just hit the beta server. We will talk about what this means for his actual damage output, which teams are going to be your new best friends when running him, and the big question, is he still worth your hard-earned stellar jades? Loot Bar is offering a special, limited 6,480 Oneiric Shards pack for only $69, compared to the $100 in-game price. That's a $31 saving, and the shards are delivered to your account within minutes. Beyond Honkai Star Rail, you can also top up in Genshin Impact. Loot Bar has over 100,000 satisfied users and also supports PS5 and Xbox top-ups. I regularly use Loot Bar for my giveaways, so I can personally recommend it. New users can still get an extra 10% discount. Returning Loot Bar users now have access to exclusive coupons offering up to 8% off on top-ups. You'll find the link in the description. And hey, real quick before we dive into the math, huge shout out to our community. We just pulled the names for yesterday's weekly giveaway over on our Discord. Here are the winners so far. And listen, if you want a shot at winning our next giveaway, it is incredibly easy. Just make sure you drop a like on this video and hit that subscribe button to join the fun. Okay, let's get back to the main event. For anyone who might be slightly out of the loop on the leaks, ASHVEIL is our upcoming 5-star lightning unit walking the path of the hunt, and he is slated to arrive in version 4.1. If I had to describe his entire design philosophy in one phrase, it would be relentless, chained follow-up attacks, or FUAs. His entire identity revolves around locking onto one single target and completely overwhelming them with back-to-back damage chains. His kit is built around two extremely cool core mechanics. The first one is called Bait. Picture this. ASHVEIL essentially paints a giant tactical target on an enemy's back. Whenever any of your allies attack that marked target, ASHVEIL immediately jumps in from the sidelines with his own follow-up attack. But it gets better. Just having that bait target active on the field intrinsically shreds the defense of every single enemy on the screen by 40%. This is incredible role compression because it means your entire team is hitting significantly harder just by having ASHVEIL stand there looking menacing. The second core mechanic is his combo meter, formerly known as Gluttony. Every single time ASHVEIL performs one of these follow-up attacks, he builds up these Gluttony stacks. What do? They act like pure rocket fuel for his ultimate, supercharging it with additional devastating extra hits. During the earlier beta phases, specifically version 2, this combination of mechanics was an absolute monster. I'm talking about putting up numbers so incredibly high that he was clearing the hardest endgame content in almost 0 turns. He was the ultimate wildcard, a hypercarry you could just drop into the game and watch him single-handedly delete the screen. And then, March 2nd arrived. The version 3 beta changes went live, and let me tell you, the community immediately went into full-blown panic mode. And look, I totally get it. When you open up the patch notes and see that almost every single damage multiplier in a character's kit got slashed, some by just a little bit, but others by a massive margin, it is terrifying to read. Let's break down exactly what got hit, because we need to look at the cold, hard facts. First, his base stats. His base attack actually got a slight bump, going from 105 up to 106. This means he is going to be a bit squishier in combat now, but the direct trade-off is that he hits noticeably harder on every individual attack because of that higher base ATK stat. His signature light cone completely mirrors this exact design philosophy. They reduced the HP and defense on it, but ramped up the ATK. The developers are sending a very clear message here. They want him leaning heavily into pure, glass cannon damage output rather than focusing on survivability. Next up, his skill. This is where it starts to hurt. His skill used to hit with a massive 300% multiplier, but in version 3, that got reduced down to 200%. If you do the math, that is roughly a 33% drop in damage on his skill alone. But the real kicker here isn't just the damage loss. The skill completely lost its ability to generate gluttony stacks. Previously, you had multiple ways to build up your combo meter. Now, gluttony is almost entirely locked behind performing follow-up attacks. The implication is huge. If his FUAs are not firing off constantly, his entire gameplay loop slows down to an absolute crawl. Now, let's talk about the ultimate. The base multiplier on the ultimate's initial hit went from 500% down to 400%, which is a flat 20% reduction on his opening burst window. However, there is actually a massive silver lining hidden here that people are completely overlooking. Here is the good news. The ultimate cost was actually dropped from 160 energy down to 150. That is a straight-up buff. A lower energy cost means you are popping that ultimate much more frequently throughout a prolonged fight. More ultimates mean more burst damage windows, vastly more gluttony stack generation, and way more follow-up chains. This is a seemingly small number change that has a deeply meaningful impact on how fast his rotation speed actually feels. On top of that, the gluttony stacks he generates from using the ultimate got buffed, jumping from 2 stacks per use up to 3 stacks. So while that initial hit of the ultimate is definitely hitting a bit weaker than before, he is actually accelerating toward his extra FUA chains much faster. That specific part of the V3 changes is a genuine, undeniable buff to his overall stack economy. But hear me out, because this next part is what truly got players grabbing their pitchforks. During his ultimate, he unleashes those extra follow-up attacks, which are tied directly to your gluttony stacks in groupings of 4. Every 4 stacks you bank gives you 1 additional FUA hit during the ultimate. In version 2, every single one of those extra hits was swinging at an absolutely wild 600% multiplier. In version 3, that number crashed down to 200%. Let's look at the maximum potential. At max gluttony, which is 12 stacks, you used to unleash a combined chain sequence dealing 800% in extra FUA damage. It was a tactical nuke. Now in version 3, that exact same max stack scenario only gives you 600%. Guys, that is a 66% reduction in his chain damage ceiling. That right there is the big one. That is the specific number that had comment sections calling him completely gutted and ruined. And the hits keep coming when we look at his talent follow-up attacks. The multiplier for those dropped from 360% per hit down to 200%, which is roughly a 44% reduction every single time it procs. Furthermore, his initial charge stacks the fuel that actually allows these talent FUAs to fire in the first place got nerfed. They used to start at 3 and cap out at 5. Now, they start at 2 and only cap at 3. So not only is he naturally doing fewer procs, but those procs hit for less individually. If we isolate just that section of his kit, his overall talent FUA output is down by a rough estimate of around 40% compared to his V2 Prime. When you tally all of this up, there is no denying it. The raw damage ceiling took a significant hit across the board. Adding everything together, you are looking at a total output reduction of somewhere around 30% compared to version 2. And yes, that is undeniably a lot of lost damage. So, we have to ask the critical question, what does all of this actually mean for how you, the player, are going to play him? Let's look at the old ASHVEIL. In version 2, he was basically designed to be a one-man army, carrying the entire team by himself. You could slot him into practically any random setup, spam his skill to fish for those gluttony stacks, pop his ultimate, and just sit back and watch the entire screen explode into numbers. He straight up did not need his allies to be hitting his bait target to reach his maximum damage ceiling. He was easily reaching it entirely on his own. Version 3, ASHVEIL paints a completely different picture. This isn't just a nerf. It is a fundamental rework of his identity. He is now heavily reliant on having his teammates actively contributing hits against that marked bait target. Because his charge system, the literal fuel for his talent FUAs, starts lower and caps lower, it naturally runs dry much faster. The absolute only way you can keep refueling that engine is by having your allies hit the target, converting their actions into more FUA procs for ASHVEIL. If you try to run him in a team where he is the only one doing the heavy lifting, you are going to feel a massive, clunky slowdown. But, and this is a massive but, if you slot him into a properly built, dedicated FUA team, the flow of combat actually works really well. Think about it like this. He is now the ultimate Swiss Army knife for your follow-up teams. Every single turn that a teammate like Topaz or Fate Xiao attacks the bait target, ASHVEIL immediately retaliates with a follow-up attack. Those FUAs then generate gluttony. The moment that gluttony hits a multiple of 4, his next ultimate gets chained with those extra FUA hits. When you have a full team actively feeding into this cycle, it actually feels significantly more fluid and dynamic than version 2 ever did, in terms of pure consistency. He never just sits there doing nothing. There is always something triggering. always some attack flying across the screen. The energy gain from ally hits on the bait target is especially interesting in this new setup. With the right team composition, his ultimate actually comes back before that 10 energy threshold even becomes an issue. This means you are basically locked into a state where ASHVEIL is almost always either rapidly building toward his ultimate or actively in the middle of his ultimate burst window. So, even though his individual hits are weaker, it is a massive tempo improvement. So, how do we build this rapid-fire team player? For stats, the direction from Theory Crafters is pointing heavily towards prioritizing speed. You are going to want to aim somewhere in that 134 to 160 speed range based on his kit design. Alongside that, you want a crit rate well above 90%, and then stack as much ATK percentage as you can, since that is his main damage scaling stat. When it comes to relics, the Ash Blazing Grand Duke set is looking like the absolute expected pick right now. Why? Because the way that set organically stacks your ATK stat during consecutive follow-up attacks feeds directly and perfectly into his new multi-hit multipliers. It essentially catches the momentum he builds and amplifies it. However, do not sleep on the Duran set from Memory of Chaos either. Duran is an incredibly strong option, especially since this new V3 kit practically begs you to run him alongside multiple other FUA characters. It gives those incredibly juicy team-wide FUA damage buffs, which means your whole team is hitting harder while they feed ASHVEIL his stacks. So, the community response to V3 has understandably been all over the place, which makes total sense given how big the changes were. The players who were incredibly hyped about him being a solo hypercarry, the kind of nuke you could force into any team to dominate, feel like that identity is completely gone, and honestly, they aren't entirely wrong. That specific version of ASHVEIL simply does not exist anymore in version 3. The kill-chaining fantasy of stacking a massive 800% chain damage nuke on a single boss and wiping out an entire MOC wave in one go is no longer what he is doing. But there is a whole other camp of players, the Theory Crafters, and the players who love high-synergy FUA team building in general, and they see him differently. The comparison to Topaz gets brought up a lot here. Now, they aren't comparing their direct roles, but rather their specific niches. Topaz isn't a character who is going to carry a team alone either, but she is an extremely strong piece in the right setup, and she actively elevates everyone around her, making the whole team function better. Version 3 ASHVEIL is being heavily compared to that exact kind of design. He is a character who needs the right team around him, but he intensely rewards you for building that team correctly. So, is he still worth pulling? Ultimately, that completely depends on what characters you already have on your account and what you want to build toward. If you love cohesive machine gun FUA teams, he is going to be your new best friend. And remember, we are only in V3. There could absolutely be a version 4 beta before he officially releases, so things might change again. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss out on any future coverage. It genuinely helps the channel out so much, and there is a lot more HSR content coming. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Who are you planning to pair him with? Are you running him with Fate Xiao, or trying out some crazy new Topaz combo? Let me know down in the comments. I love reading your team ideas. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Loot Bar is offering a special limited 6,480 Oneiric Shards pack for only $69, compared to the $100 in-game price. That's a $31 saving, and the shards are delivered to your account within minutes. Beyond Honkai Star Rail, you can also top up in Genshin Impact. Loot Bar has over 100,000 satisfied users and also supports PS5 and Xbox top-ups. I regularly use Loot Bar for my giveaways, so I can personally recommend it. New users can still get an extra 10% discount. Returning Loot Bar users now have access to exclusive coupons offering up to 8% off on top-ups. You'll find the link in the description.